What's up, Spurs fans? Welcome back. It's fitting that I kind of messed up there because that's how the game went tonight. Welcome back, Spurs fans, to SSPN Postgame. This may be like one of the shortest ones we do all year. Me and Ethan were kind of just talking about it. Obviously, a blowout loss to the Raptors tonight. They were hitting on
Mhm.
all cylinders, 143 to 100, a 43-point win for the Raptors. Pascal had a triple-double midway, like through the third quarter. They were firing on all cylinders. Other than that little run that we made to make it, a 1-point game after the first quarter, really after that, it was all Toronto. So it was 32 to 31 in the first quarter. Then it was 32-18 Toronto against San Antonio, 40 to 21 in the third quarter, and then 39 to 30 in the fourth. And the fourth was a wash anyway. Chris Boucher, I don't know how you say it, played well for them. 7 for 10, 3 for 5 from 3, 17 points. OG Anunoby, 5 steals on the night. He was a pest in passing lanes. 18, 5, and 3 offensively. Like I mentioned, Pascal, 22, 10, and 11 in just 28 minutes. And then Gary Trent Jr. was hitting shots for them tonight as well with 24 points. Just looking at the Spurs box score, I'll go through it for you guys. Malachi Branham had 13 tonight. Didn't really get in rhythm until he was like the main facilitator and was playing against their third stringers and was able to get his shot going a little bit. Jay Rich, 10 points tonight on 3 of 9 shooting. Keita Bates was the leading scorer with 17 and 4 boards, went 2 for 4 from 3. And really, other than that, quietly, Trey Jones with almost a triple-double tonight. 7, 8, and 7. If you want to try to find another positive. Romeo Langford hit a 3-2. But we really just kind of, at a certain point, kind of stopped playing our starters. What were your thoughts on this one, Ethan?
This is what happens when you take a rebuilding team and take their two best players off the roster and then make Jeremy Sohan your rookie first round lottery pick. You give him only 10 minutes because he's coming off of a flu like symptom thing for 5 days or whatever, where he did nothing but sit on his butt. And who else was not there? Isaiah Roby wasn't
Ruby,
there, who was a very
Blake.
important. Blake Wesley's injured. Obviously, Josh Primo's no longer on the team. So you have a bunch of rotational guys that haven't been given that many meaningful, or they haven't played in these roles before, Jude. All of a
Right.
sudden, everyone's asked to do a lot more. And then they're asked to do it against Toronto, who's a very experienced team with a great coach. They're very lengthy. Everyone, 1 through 5, is long, tall, and great on defense. They were able to play the passing lanes, like you said. Pascal, as well as OG Anunoby, were very difficult, as well as Scotty Barnes. So when we aren't able to kind of
Christian
get.
Coloco too. Like that was a name I
Mhm.
hadn't really heard before this one. Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt you,
No, you're
but I
good.
mean
You're good.
he's 7'1" and can kind of
Hmm.
play on the perimeter too. Like he's listed as a forward just in his position. He's not even listed as a center. So that's
Yeah.
just once again a testament to their length that you were talking about.
They basically have everybody 6'6" or higher with incredibly long wingspans, 1 through 5,
Yep.
all the way down the roster, which is crazy. The only guy that's not that tall is probably Fred Van Fleet, who didn't play tonight. He was actually injured. But, so we're an unexperienced team or inexperienced team without our best players playing against a very lengthy defensive minded team that was able to take advantage of some sloppy offense, get in
Hmm.
transition, get some momentum, and they didn't allow us to play our game, which is fast-paced basketball. And part of that's probably because we were without Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell, who really opened up the floor. And the Raptors made up their mind. We're going to stop the Spurs transition, and we're not going to let their shooters, Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott, take a million shots from three-point land. And that was the recipe for a 43-point blowout win, Jude. Simple as that.
Yep. Yep. I'll give you a little bit of my breakdown, but I agree with everything that you just said. I mean, the three things for me, first of all, I mean, I know we've been playing without Devin and had success, but I think you really saw the impact of
Yeah.
Keldon and just what he does for the offense. Obviously, Devin does, he has a huge impact too, and we're going to see more of that as the season goes on. But tonight, just in the way that we've been able to win games and fight through them with Devin out, when you take out Keldon, you really see how, that's really what the offense, I think, was built around, obviously, because there are two best players. And so
Mhm.
that's why everybody was out of whack, not in the right spots, like all that stuff. So when you take those guys out and then you take two key rotational pieces out on top of that, and we're not playing Sohan like the way that we normally would. Um, not just in his position, but also in his minutes. He'd usually play the whole game. And we were, like I said, we've said multiple times on the show, Isaiah Roby, Keita Bates, and Jeremy Sohan, excuse me. We actually, on the first episode, I said Bill Land said Sohan, and then now it's like everybody said Sohan. So I guess that is the correct pronunciation, even though you'd think they'd have it down on the first day of the game, or the first game of the season. But, you have those three guys that usually were kind of playing, the four in rotation. And I kind of wondered, say in a world where Isaiah Roby doesn't have flu-like symptoms, he doesn't get sick from Sohan. I wonder if, not to like pin that on Sohan, but y'all get what I'm saying. Like, I wonder if Sohan even plays tonight in that world. You know what I mean? Like, it might have been a little bit more out of necessity, and that's why in the fourth quarter, it was Malachi, Charles Bassey, Dom Barlow, Jordan Hall and the gang, and Gorgie out there, hooping.
Yep.
So that's kind of what it was with those three guys. And then on top of that, Blake Wesley. And I know that we've only really seen a game and a half from him, but still, like, it seemed like he was next man up whenever it came to replacing Josh Primo and being that kind of, that point guard off the bench. And so when you take him out of the equation, which that's something they'll have to deal with, but when you get Keldon and Devin back, that's really going to help that. But tonight, when you throw that in, I mean, that just costs, like the rotations were all out of whack is the main point here. And so when you couple that with your two best players being out, this is the result you're going to get. And this Toronto team is hot. I'm not necessarily like, I don't want to say I'm completely sold on them, but they did just blow out the Hawks, who you could argue have a little bit more talent than us. 139 to 109 or 103, something like that. It was a 30-point win for them, and they had all their dudes. So I don't know if this is a turning point for Toronto or it was just, they were playing the Spurs without their best guys. But, I think it'll be interesting to see how they do in the East moving forward.
They looked great tonight, Jude.
Yeah.
They looked fantastic, and their shots were falling. I was a little, my silver lining going into the game was maybe we can make them play half-court offense, and then they'll struggle because, Pascal's a great scorer, but aside from him, I mean, Scotty Barnes really a transition guy, gets his baskets off of, being a help guy on offense or, moving without the ball. So I figured maybe we can slow them down, but no, they look great in full court. Obviously, that's where they got like a ton of their points, but also just, able to execute against a, poor defensive communication from the Spurs. And probably that's from what you said, bad rotations or just different rotations is what I mean.
Yeah. No chemistry within the rotations, I guess you could say. And I think when you look at the starting lineup, like I was kind of thinking about it when I was looking at the box score here. I was like, Jakob only played 21 minutes, Trey only played 21 minutes, Romeo only. But then I'm realizing with the way the game was going, there's no reason to keep them out there longer.
No.
Another thing that could be a key, just something to keep an eye on, right? Because we knew Keldon got beat up a little bit last game, but really I don't think any of us expected him to not play in this game, which is why on Monday I said that I thought the Spurs would beat the Raptors, which I got completely wrong, obviously. They definitely look, hey, Pascal, I don't know if y'all were watching. I doubt you were, but if you were, you slapped me in the face. So
yeah.
Anyways, did you say just like that?
No, I said he's that guy.
Oh,
just like that.
Oh my gosh. But Trey Jones hurt his shoulder late in the game. And it seemed like he was able to recover from it and take the ball down the floor after like two possessions kind of running up. But at first he was like pointing like, hey, like I need to get out. Like Gorgie was going to pass it to him on a possession when he was in the corner. And he was like, no, dude, I can't do that right now. But then he took it down the floor. So I think he should be fine. But that's just something to keep an eye on because like we said, I don't think you expected Keldon to be out tonight.
No, man. If Trey Jones is hurt for an extended period of time, this team
I don't
is
think
going
it'll be
to
extended.
flounder. Well, even one game we're going to lose. Like without Trey Jones, we are really, without a facilitator because especially now that Blake Wesley is injured, we noticed tonight in that second unit, especially, Jay Rich is a good playmaker, but when he's on the ball, aside from Doug, who else is going to score for you in that second unit? Jay Rich needs to be moving without the ball, coming off screens,
right,
being set up by Trey Jones or, Blake Wesley. Or even Devin or Keldon, they're kind of been alternating minutes, kind of sharing.
Keldon really has looked comfortable bringing it up the floor, and I had I'm interested to see how Devin looks moving forward, because
Yeah.
we just haven't been able to see as much as him. But
Yeah, so if Trey Jones is injured for 1 or 2 games, whatever it is, we're really going to notice the impact that he has on this game because he really is our
yeah,
only true facilitator on the team right now.
yeah, yeah, I would completely agree. And it's like with Blake Wesley, even though you can tell he has some of those skills, he's still 19 years old and a rookie and kind
Yeah,
of, more of an explosive guard. Although I really liked what I saw in that game and a half, like the guaranteed true facilitator that you talked about, like the real, like true point guard we have on the team. Cause we even played Blake at the 2 a little bit last game. He's
yeah,
more of a combo guard, you could say. Obviously he'll be playing the point more with us, especially with Malachi getting minutes, or whoever is playing the 2. But with drafting Malachi, I think they're going to mold him as more of a point guard. Um, I don't even think. I think we know just from what we've seen. Um, but yeah, Trey is really like the main true point guard with like NBA experience on the team. So that's going to be really rough if he's out. I mean, obviously I know how important he is, but now that you mentioned it and I really thought about it more, I really seeing how that could be
yeah,
tough. I think the only thing that could potentially mitigate that, like say if he's out Friday against the Clippers, is if you bring Devin and Keldon back. But from
yeah.
what it sounded like, I don't know if Keldon's going to be back Friday or Saturday.
I didn't
Um,
realize he got as banged up as he did because on the stream they
right,
showed all of the little bumps and bruises he took. Extended, he hyperextended his knee, he twisted his ankle like twice, I think, and then he hit the ground a handful of times, just taking it to the cup hard or
right.
going up to contest a shot. So knock on wood, hopefully he's not too badly injured.
Well, I'm glad I brought this up because our girl Ayala Isabel, I hope I pronounced that right, just said that Pop in the post-game press conference said Trey and Romeo Langford got hurt and they're getting checked out and hopefully they'll be able to play.
Fingers crossed. Romeo
Right,
didn't play all that well defensively. He's always kind of consistent enough
right.
and a solid on-ball
He
defender,
made
but
some floaters and hit a 3, but
But I'm not willing to blame Romeo
right,
because
right.
nobody really had a great game offensively. Keita Bates led the way with 17. I was disappointed that Jakob Pertl didn't play more aggressively offensively. I know
Mhm.
they're a long, and physical defensive minded team over there in Toronto, but he's supposed to be our third best player technically. I would have liked to have fed the post a little bit more, tried to, get him going early because it
Uh-huh.
felt like to me even when we did feed him, he was like
It
letting
was
them push him
often.
out, and he was kind of coming out and handing it off immediately, like not even attempting to back anybody down, which is, you know,
Yeah. You don't like to see that, but I think a lot of that has to play in with like I don't want to say this, but I think to an extent they knew. And then, they had a little run at the end of the first, and then Toronto made their adjustments. And I think reality set in a little bit tonight.
yeah,
And they played hard. I don't want to, say that they quit or anything, but you could tell like late in like the second half of the third quarter, it was like they were like, all right, we kind of know what this is. We don't
yeah,
have Keldon and Devin. This is just, and it's not working right now. I don't think it's going to
that's
work
true.
tonight.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. It felt like Zach Collins was a little more physical and aggressive than Jakob tonight, which is
yeah,
you know
that's
rare.
not something we've really seen. Right,
Yeah.
right. Um, Floyd, I want to get back to your comment. We talked about this a little bit, but just want to get to it because you asked. So is Sohan? He was just on a minutes restriction because he's coming off an illness. And they also said on the broadcast he hasn't eaten much because he was sick. So that was another reason that kind of went into it. And then with Romeo, Ayala just mentioned in the comments that he was just mentioned by Pop. He got hurt in the game. So I don't think any of those are going to be serious injuries. They'll probably be like Devin's injury that's happened right now. But with the Spurs, they're going to keep him out. And what if this was just the plan the whole time? They're like we've seen a lot of tanking comments in here. What if the plan the whole time was just like, look, we're going to play him, and as soon as they get a little injury, they're out for 2 weeks.
It feels like that for sure because like our
Like,
first win, it was like, okay, we'll sit Devin, and then the next we won that one. Like, okay, let's sit Jay Rich as well, and then our
mhm.
next one, like, okay, let's sit everybody because obviously we're way better than everybody thought.
Oh my gosh, Lord, right? It would be a fun
Yeah,
conspiracy. Um, Our man Swatcho Bros says, I'm fine with losses, but I feel bad for the
yeah,
fans who are in the arena when it's this bad. I do too, because it's like, and I bet you like some of these people didn't even know
Oh,
Keldon
one
was out
thousand percent.
and probably showed up and it was just what it was. Our man, for something that's nice tonight, if we want to take some sort of positive away from this, Edward Fowler brings up a decent point. We were missing 40 points out of the lineup. If you want to give Devin and Keldon 20, but I think the game plays out completely different just in general. Obviously, if those guys were playing, which is what we were kind of talking about. We we have some other people kind of talking about trades and stuff. I saw something for Jakob, and that was from Edward as well, I believe. And he just said, "So will trades be coming up?" I don't think just because of this game at all, just because Devin and Keldon were out. If our injury conspiracy is true, then maybe. But I would say that they're going to give it a little bit more time. I still think all that stuff's going to be closer to the deadline if we do anything like that. And I think it will be interesting. We'll definitely learn where the Spurs front office's headspace is at in regards to the draft this year as we get closer to the deadline. Because if there's no deals made and we're close to 500, then they'll probably just roll with this core and give him as much reps as possible. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to predict, obviously moving forward. Because like we've mentioned so many times, you just don't know how the Spurs are going to react to some of the game plans when they really get a game plan from teams on them. So, I don't want to guarantee success moving forward when we get Keldon and Devin back, but so far they've been playing really well with even just eyes, one of those two. So yeah, with trades and everything, like I said, I would highly doubt if the Spurs are playing well, like if they continue to play the way they've been playing when they get their guys back, that we end up moving some of those guys, but maybe we do. But that's kind of what I'm getting at when I say we're going to learn more as we get closer to the trade deadline. If we don't move anybody, then we know that they're rolling with this core and they like them. And if they do trade them and we're doing well anyway, then okay, they're really just trying to get as many assets as possible.
Yeah, I agree.
What are kind of your thoughts on that, like trades and everything moving forward with the way the season's gone?
I don't think anything will happen until we get closer to that deadline for sure. With the way injuries are looking, it doesn't look like we'll actually need to trade them if for some reason the front office is like really bent out of shape as to wanting to get a top 5 pick and we start winning too much. This injury thing, that's going to keep us away from
Yeah.
winning games more than anything. So, and I do think we like Jakob Poeltl, we like Doug McDermott, we
Yes.
like Josh Richardson. So at the end of the day, if there's some way we can keep them while, fulfilling our timetable, whatever it may be, I think they'll try to do that. It's impossible to tell because the Spurs for years didn't do anything, even when it was, logical that they did. And then last year, all of a sudden, we traded Derek White and we traded DeJounte Murray and we traded DeMar DeRozan. Like all of a sudden, we were trading everybody. So it's really a toss up. Who knows? Who knows what the Spurs will
Right.
do at the end of the day? I think if somebody is moved, it will likely be one of our shooters, Josh Richardson or Doug McDermott. I think Jakob, it's a little less likely. I know he declined his extension, but that happens with a lot of guys that will decline their extension because they know they can get paid a little bit more if they just have a little bit more leverage when free agency starts. And he's the kind of guy that is underpaid significantly for the amount of stuff he does for this team. And once he enters unrestricted free agency, if we don't trade him, he will absolutely be getting a bag, especially averaging a double-double like he is now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out for sure, but I'm sure it'll depend on kind of how these games go moving forward and if the injury bug keeps hitting this young Spurs team, for sure. I've seen Easy make some comments about Cam Thomas, and I just have to say as an LSU guy, I'd love that. But we just have so many guards right now, but he is a really talented player that's not getting minutes. So, I mean, if we're trading like Jay Rich, or Doug for him, I mean, I would honestly, I really like. I mean, I like both of those guys, kind of like you just mentioned and we've mentioned before. But I forget what interview it was. Maybe it was you that even mentioned this, that like Doug was saying he'd love to like be on the Spurs for the rest of his career.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and he's kind of already got like a longer contract. So if we do go after Cam Thomas, I would hate it because I wouldn't hate it, but it would suck because I love Jay Rich and I like even tonight, like I like how he was like being feisty. And I know sometimes it doesn't work out, but it's like he has pride You know what I mean? Playing for the
Yeah.
Spurs. And we've seen so many guys get traded here that just are like, okay, I'm here. Like as much as like somebody we played tonight, Thad. Like that was kind of his mentality. You could tell last year when he was out there. And it wasn't that he wasn't trying, but it was just like he didn't want to be in San Antonio necessarily. It wasn't that he didn't like it, but he didn't want to be there. So
Yeah.
where Jay Rich, you can tell since he's gotten here, we've said this before. It really feels like he does. So if we could move him to the Nets, to get them some shooting help, I'm actually thinking about that. That would actually be maybe a trade that the Nets would take, and
Yeah.
get a young guard in Cam Thomas who's similar to him in that same position. I would love that, but I think that might also just be a little bit of my LSU bias creeping in.
Who knows? Brooklyn Nets are bound to do
But
something. I saw a rumor going around that they wanted, or I don't know if this is legitimate or if it's just fans on Twitter kind of making up their own predictions, but it was like Ben Simmons and Cam Thomas for Jakob Poeltl, Doug, and Jay Rich.
mhm,
Just straight up.
I saw that.
And I'm not against that logically. Ben Simmons would probably not play for the rest of the season. And if we did that trade, we'd make up some kind of injury for him. Or maybe he would. Maybe he would be our centerpiece and kind of help be a point
I think
guard and
we
be
could
that second
actually.
facilitator.
I don't know. I feel like if we trade for him, I don't. It's sorry. I feel like
Yeah.
because with our in that scenario, I feel like we've got to play him at like the 5.
Which we could.
And
We
if he
very
wants to
much could.
facilitate too, like that's fine. But like, you know what I mean. But I really don't think this is going to happen.
No,
I
I don't
don't
think
think the
so
Spurs are
either.
going to touch Ben Simmons.
I don't think it'll
Yeah.
happen. I think maybe a Cam Thomas for Jay Rich or a Cam Thomas for Doug is a little more likely, only because Cam Thomas is clearly not happy in Brooklyn. Brooklyn needs some help
Hmm.
scoring, or they don't even need scoring. They just need perimeter defense, which I guess would be Jay Rich.
Right.
And then obviously they need,
And off
yeah,
ball
and they
players.
obviously need a big man that's a little more physical than Claxton. Claxton's a good roller, but he's not a very good rim protector, not the best help defender. Jakob could fix
Hmm.
that. Um, but we'll see once we get closer to the deadline.
Yeah. Yeah. Floyd Gizzy says Ben Simmons. Is there any more
Yeah,
anti-Spur? And yeah,
personality wise.
personality wise, no, you hit it
If
right
he
on
had
the
a better
money.
personality,
Um,
he'd be Spur, like a defensive
right,
minded,
right,
unselfish playmaker. But because of his
right.
mental issues and incapacity to even attempt a shot or be a good teammate,
Or
yeah,
care playing
it's just
defense.
like one of those things. If he just had a better mentality, if he had a Jay Rich
He's
mentality,
weird.
he'd be a perfect San Antonio
Right.
Spur, literally.
Oh my gosh. All right, Ethan. Well, with the way this game went, we weren't even expecting this thing to go past 15 minutes, but here we are sitting in the 23rd minute. So we made it run a little bit longer. These next 2 games, I actually got it wrong. For some reason, I thought the Friday game was the Denver game, but that's actually
Mm.
Saturday. And then we play the Clippers on Friday. So will Kawhi show up? I don't know. Probably depends on whether or not Keldon or Devin plays. If they don't play, then he'll show up. But if they do play, he won't show up because that's him.
Yeah.
Um, but and by the way, Keldon Johnson will be better than Kawhi Leonard.
Hopefully,
No,
man.
but we won the trade, and it's going to be
It's gonna
obvious.
be obvious. Yeah,
That's me fooling around for anybody who takes that
Kawhi's gonna
seriously.
crumble to the floor when Big Body takes it into him, bro.
But I will say, I was about to say, well, but he's doing more at a younger age. But also, Kawhi was on
Yeah,
like championship
yeah. And his
teams.
third
So,
season, Finals
anyways,
MVP, fourth season, and fifth
right,
season
right.
DPOY.
There you go.
It's a little hard to top.
And at the throw a
Yeah.
championship in there too. But anyways, 143 to 100 loss. And if Trey Jones and this injury bug continues, that these Clippers, Denver, there's a couple of it. Like this stretch is going to be rough. Like not fun to watch, but we'll be here. We'll be here for y'all. Don't worry.
It'll be a fun
And
time.
once everybody comes back, hopefully Keldon and Devin are back
Oh,
Friday, or at least Devin,
please.
and Trey plays. But if we lose Trey, and even if we get, the only way that it will be mitigated is if we get both back. But from the way it sounded on the broadcast, it doesn't seem like Keldon's going to be back Friday. Devin might have a shot. If somebody comes back Friday, Devin and Isaiah Roby is who I would look out for. And hopefully we can get Sohan some more minutes as time progresses. But if the injury bug keeps hitting Ethan, it's going to be a rough stretch.
Wembanyama.
Right? Hey, if it gets bad enough, we'll just go
It's
right
a
back up
silver
to
lining.
like
Yep.
everybody was saying, right? Silver,
Oh,
silver. Okay,
silver and black lining.
yeah, like that's what I was about to say. I was going to say, should I say black
Black
line? Anyways, but it wouldn't really make sense. But anyways, we appreciate you guys. We'll catch y'all in the next one. This has been SSPN, and hopefully we'll have some much better games to watch moving forward.